Welcome everyone, Sean Corbett, True West Realty Group. Thank you for jumping in and sitting with us. We've got a special guest today. I've got Dan Seyler. Is that how you say it?
Seyler.
Seyler, S-E-Y-L-E-R, Seyler.
There you go.
With Goosehead Insurance. I've met Dan a few times now. It's been probably about 4 or 5 months now.
Yes, sir.
He's gotten me a few lunches. I appreciate that. We're connected through one of my real estate groups, and I wanted to bring him on because he's got an interesting kind of background. He's chosen to leave the corporate world of 25 years.
Yes.
And then go into insurance. And I don't know why anyone would do that.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that.
So we'll let him kind of share why in the world would you do that? Or maybe that fits your mold. Maybe that someone's out there saying, yeah, that's exactly just like me. I would do that.
Right.
So I want to kind of go through that. We'll talk a little bit about real estate and then talk about some hobbies and things that you're doing.
Sounds great.
And any other fun things that come along. So it should be a good time with Dan.
That's going to be good. Thanks for the time, Sean.
Sure. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your background. So
Yes,
you were in corporate. We'll start with college. You went to college. What was your intention? Why did you go to college?
I went to college. I think parents expect you to go to college. So I went, but I liked school. I was pretty good at school. So I was actually a Spanish and Latin American studies major.
Yeah.
That doesn't get you a job real easily unless you want to teach Spanish. So I got more interested in the economics and the society part than I was in just the language part. And that led me to a graduate degree in international economic development at American University in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So, and I did kind of spend some time in that field for about 10 years.
Where did you grow up prior to?
I'm a Northeast guy, grew up in the Philadelphia area primarily. Both my parents are from New York City. And I moved south and west, D.C., and then I lived in Florida. And then in 2003, moved to Texas. Got here as soon as I could.
You don't like the Eagles, do you?
I don't.
Okay.
But I did root for them in the Super Bowl.
I can't do that.
Understood. They did throw a snowball at Santa Claus. Come on.
Yeah, they did. And they throw snowballs with batteries in it. I don't know if you ever read those stories.
No, I
they're
believe
tough.
it.
They're tough fans.
They are.
But obviously Cowboys all the way. Cowboys will win the Super Bowl next year.
I hope so.
As we predict every year.
Praying for that for a long time.
So you were in the corporate field 25 years. What was the business?
Yeah, so I work for a company called Paychecks. We were working with small businesses, which I really enjoy. I like working with realtors and lenders now because they're small businesses, right? And so we were helping with payroll, but I was really involved with HR and benefits, teach them how to put a 401k plan in there, offer employee benefits to their employees, how to create a corporate culture for small business to compete with big companies.
We could probably do a whole podcast on that. I spent 10 years as vice president of human resources.
Oh, there you go.
And I would meet with brokers and people like yourself on setting up plans like that and adding 401k plan. We added a 401k plan into our company, and I helped kind of set a lot of that stuff up and manage it. So could have a whole lot of conversations about that. I think it's an interesting field. Yeah. I love human resources, but I knew long term there's absolutely a ceiling. There's only so much you can pay someone on the support side of the business.
Absolutely.
So I liked the real estate benefit. There's no cap to what I do. There's no cap on what kind of advice I give, whether it's good or bad. You can take it. But I can speak from quite a bit of experience.
You've been pretty successful. I bet most of it's pretty good recommendations.
I would think so. I hope so. So how did you get into insurance? You were doing that type of stuff, Paychecks, and then
So I didn't want to compete with Paychecks. They were very good to me, to be real honest with you. So and my son kind of introduced me to Goosehead because he interviewed there, and I thought to myself, how about bringing together maybe a multi-generational family business? And since my son doesn't know a lot about insurance, I thought personal lines could be an easier way for him to start. Even though he's not involved in the business yet, that was my thinking. And when I helped him do the due diligence on his interview process at Goosehead, I was impressed by 3 things about Goosehead. First was their sales model. I know works. It's a channel model as opposed to just, hope and spray. You work with specific partners like we do with you guys. And then secondly, they're a tech disruptor.
So it's relationship based.
It's relationship, yeah.
That helps a lot.
It does. And, you're just not trying to throw flyers out to everybody and hope they're going to call you. That doesn't work a lot of times. And then their technology really impressed me. They're a technological disruptor, and that would take you more time. But it's pretty backward, the insurance industry, when it comes to tech, by and large. And then thirdly, their service model was superior. Really, the focus was to separate sales from service and let the service people be great service people and let me be a good salesperson.
Okay. So I remember, and I remember reading this on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
You talked about being a multi-generational family opportunity.
Yeah.
And then you said your son looked into it and you're like, well, that's something I could probably do. And then whatever I could grow and teach, I could probably hand down. So is Goosehead, are you an independent contractor running your own?
No, I'm a franchisee. So I bought a franchise.
Okay.
And I own the book of business.
Okay. And so it's like if I bought a State Farm franchise.
But at State Farm, you don't get to actually own the book at the end. You have to give it back to State Farm.
Okay. Well, maybe that's not a good example.
but it's the same concept.
But okay.
But the whole idea of insurance is really long term. It's the residual.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's building a book of business, repeat business, and then expanding it from there.
Well, I can relate to that. I mean, I could have stayed an independent broker, and I did that for about 10 years, running my own real estate business. And I could have stayed with that and only build as much as I could sell, and I could recruit that they would eventually leave anyway.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the reasons that led me to looking at other options, and EXP landed on me.
Yeah.
And it has rev share, it has a residual built in, it has stocks, it has all kinds of long-term retirement options.
No, it's pretty impressive.
In a real estate business.
I've been in some of your guys' meetings, and the comp plan is pretty impressive. You guys have EXP Realty. So if you're going to do real estate, that's pretty compelling.
It's hard to get into as an independent contractor where you don't own a franchise or there's not any of these type of things, to have something that is long-term residual base, right? Yeah. It's really hard to find things that are like that. They do offer that. So that did make a big difference.
When I've seen you guys do the presentations, I'm impressed too by the international. I've worked in about 12 different countries over the years. And I would like that part. It's pretty interesting too, that you could have a network kind of internationally. That's pretty cool.
You can have agents that join you that can be in another country, and you can refer business, even if it's not in your own group, to anyone in the world.
Yeah.
And they have a referral based model built in with one cap.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. You guys got a good gig.
That's not duplicatable easily.
No, that takes a big organization to pull that off.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you chose Goosehead because it offered a few. Did you look at other?
Yeah, I did look a little bit. I started looking around. You know, one of my friends had a State Farm, and another one had Farmers, and they're good. State Farm has a kind of a lucrative thing coming in, but on the back end, you kind of got to give it back.
Exit is a problem.
Yeah, and then Farmers is good, but they have a limited risk tolerance. So if you can get what they want, you've got a good policy and price. Yep. But there's limited options.
Limited scope.
Yeah. So with Goosehead, you got this.
Farmers are typically one of your better priced options, but they're very limited in scope in order to get those better prices.
Yeah. If you're going to get a really nice new house and they have good credit, you're going to get a pretty good deal. But out in Texas, there's a lot of variety out there, all kinds of houses, people that are buying, and all the growth we have. So we probably have a solution to any of those kind of options out there.
Okay. I love it. What would you tell that now that you've done research, you've looked at the insurance business, and you were in the corporate business for a long time, what would you tell someone that is looking at getting into the insurance model?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would look at it from a couple different angles, Sean. I think first, I look at it as a business person and then as the owner too, right? So from a business person, you got to be patient. You're going to have to build the book. You're not going to make the money you made the first year or two.
It's definitely a long game.
It's a long game. And when I used to work with financial advisors, they used to say, you're paid the first 5 years horribly, the next 5 years about the right amount. After that, you're overpaid, right? So maybe it's in that gambit. But so I think it's a long-term game, relationship building. There's some details, some technical. You got to get licensed, fingerprinted, all those things. You got to be ready for all that. And then from a business ownership perspective, I think one of the things a lot of companies make mistakes within financial services, they're bringing all these kids out of college that don't really have the skills yet in a lot of different areas, don't have the networks, don't have the net worth yet to do it right. So when you have some of those skills, you've learned with a CRM, I know how to use Salesforce, I have a network of people, I know how to treat customers, I do know how to sell, do those things and lead people. It gives you a lot more ability to come in and probably have the foundation for success.
It's funny, they do a lot of recruiting. I know some of these, and I think Goosehead could probably be guilty of that as well, is bringing in a lot of new, fresh, exciting salespeople to try to take their stab at the business. And man, I tell you, the number one challenge, what you said is true, but even in my business, right, you're not going to buy, a $500,000, $700,000 house from a 21-year-old. You're probably not, unfortunately.
Probably not.
There's got to be ways that they have to offset their lack of credibility, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big challenge. You know, I know I have people in my team that have certainly more experience, more advice, all kinds of benefits, but they aren't given the time of day because they look or seem young.
Yeah.
Lack of credibility. So that's something that we've kind of had to deal with in my business.
Yeah, in 30 years in business, I've learned how to connect with people. And
I'll give you an example. I wouldn't have to guess that you just started an intern. I'd assume you've been doing it for 5-10 years. Easy.
Yeah. Well, that's
because you have business acumen, you have language, you have certain personality set, you have some things, and you have established credibility because your hair's gray.
Yeah. And that's not by dying, by the way. That's the old-fashioned way. No, for example, I work with a lender up in Flower Mound, and I figured out that he's really into racquetball. So we had a meeting on the morning of Good Friday, the only two people working that I could tell. And, I just asked him on the way out, what's his favorite racquetball? So it's a Penn Purple. And, it's not hard with Amazon. So, he came into the office Monday and he had his favorite racquetball.
He already jumped on there.
It wasn't a big deal, but it was just, understanding that's really important to him. And so find out what's important to people.
What's your favorite racquetball? That's a good tip. Y'all better take that. I hope you charge it for that.
Could be favorite paddle ball, pickleball paddle or something like that.
Pickleball, big deal now.
Yeah. I bought the stuff. I haven't played yet.
I'll tell you something that's kind of funny. I was thinking about, and I've had this, and I've thought this for a long time. So back when my wife and I first got married and then she got her first teaching job, I always thought, and this will be very controversial, but I always thought that teachers
that brings on more viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. But I always thought teachers were paid a lot of money out of college.
Oh,
so
why did you think that?
Well, so I graduated college, right? I had an MBA and all these different things, and I'm making $35,000 a year.
Yeah,
she immediately made 50.
Yeah, but she plateaued pretty quick.
So that's the opposite of what you were talking about in the financial industry, where you start off and it sucks because you got to earn, you got to kill, and then you eventually grow into something that's worth it, and then you're overpaid.
Yeah,
but to get to overpaid, it's kind of like when I solve a real estate problem, I might solve it in 10 seconds, where someone might take hours or calling all these different people.
But that's their experience that you've.
But my experience allows me to solve it quickly, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to quantify that, right? So you might say, well, you're overpaid for it. Well, no, you paid me because I gave you the solution, because I know how to solve the problem. And now we're in the opposite side of it. She don't make anywhere near the amount of stress it causes our family. It's very hard on our family. It's very hard on our family dynamic. We got 3 kids. I've got a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and I've got an 8-year-old. So
imagine the benefits of the kids that are learning from her.
Oh, she's incredibly invested. Yeah. Absolutely. She's in a low socioeconomic school, is what they call it, SES. And she's in Louisville Independent School District. And
farmers.
What's that?
The farmers, fighting farmers.
Yeah, Louisville fighting farmers. She's on that side. And she and I both went to Marcus Marauders. That was all we had was Louisville and Marcus when we were growing up.
Yeah, that's a pretty good robbery.
So that's where she and I went. But yeah, she's got to invest.
You were the rich kids.
We were the rich kids, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were in Highland Village. We both actually grew up pretty close together, too. I met her outside of high school. We met in church. There's a church not far from our high school there.
So her parents trusted you.
I tricked them. There's no doubt. I had to definitely trick them. And I did that before I even asked her. I made sure that
that's right.
We were in the right places.
You're showing your sales skills early.
I worked hard on those sales skills for sure. But anyway, it worked out.
Nice.
She bought into all the lies, and now we have a good place. We have 3 amazing kids.
That's awesome.
And she's still teaching. I'd love to bring her home.
What's her subject?
She's kindergarten.
Kindergarten. Wow.
So you take someone.
Energy. That's all about energy at that level.
You think about all the different challenges that all teachers have, and hers, she's taking kids from preschool that have never been in a classroom. Mm-hmm. They don't have any type of class management, and they have to sit. Yeah. How about that?
That's hard.
Can you imagine sitting for 6-7 hours when you're a kindergartner?
Guys like you and I, that's pretty hard.
Yeah. And my boy, he can't even sit for 3 minutes, and he's 8.
Yeah.
So that's probably and she has a lot of other challenges. It's a low socioeconomic school, which means that there's a lot of poverty, ongoing challenges. Parents, they don't even have a PTA. They can't even get enough involvement from the parents because they're all working 3 jobs. And they have all kinds of
Some
challenges.
Some may have cultural and language challenges too.
There's a unique proposition there at her school. It's called the Chen. They are from a country called Myanmar or Burma. It's the same country.
Yeah, I know.
So on the west side of that country is a province, is a state called Chen, and they were evangelized to about 1900s, something around that time. A missionary went over, evangelized to them, and they started getting conversions. And they're not a Christian country.
More Buddhist, I think.
Yeah. So they're not a Christian country. Yeah. And, the current regime, and I'd say the last 30, 40 years have really moved into this militaristic, kill anyone that's not the way we want to be, right?
Imprison the prime minister and everything.
Yes, the girl, yes. And then she came back out, and
they put her back in.
Yeah, and they put her back in. So anyway, so they've been coming over here as refugees for the last 20, 25 years. So now we're getting into second gen of that type of culture and people. But they don't speak English when they came here.
Yeah.
So she had at one point, she would have 40, 50% of her class would be Chen.
Yeah.
In Louisville.
One of my top regional managers at Paychex in LA, Steve Hansen, his family's from Burma, his mom was from Burma. Great, successful people.
And I bet you'll find no one that works harder too.
Oh yeah.
They have appreciation that we don't have, and we weren't born there. We didn't, we were born where we were born. Yeah. We take a lot of things, I think, for granted for sure, but watching them go through those type of things and what they have to earn and do to make it, like they think the teacher is like the greatest position on earth. Like
that's great.
Like they pay their teachers
in Burma.
Burma. Well, they don't. They just pay them. Like they have to in order just to get their kids taught.
Have you seen I think it might have won an Oscar. I just recently saw it on Netflix. The film about the British guys in the famous building of the railroad in Burma in World War II, I think it was, and how they were poorly treated. And the guy goes back and finds the guy who mistreated him. I'll get you the reference. It was
interesting.
Really yeah.
I don't watch a whole lot of TV or movies.
This one's like 7 years old.
Unless it's like a cartoon. Then.
Yeah. I like cartoons too.
You only get so much time in the day, and I go with what my kids want to go.
There you go.
With.
That's a good call.
I tell them that's a great idea. Let's watch that.
Yeah, exactly.
So type of client, I think we were kind of talking a little bit. Who's your primary client that you just either connect with or you just have the most of?
Yeah, I think I'll tell you who we kind of prefer. What's great is we like all people that are going to buy a house and have house and a couple of cars and maybe an umbrella policy or a dwelling or have another property. But what we like is someone who's in the process of buying a house, because then there's a pending event. They got to get this house. Yep. They're going to make a decision.
There's some urgency.
It's going to move fast.
Yeah.
And that's better for us. That's going to be a more productive sales cycle for us. And that's what Goosehead built their model on. That's really clever.
So your target, that's why you come to a lot of. So I'm in real estate. He got connected with another lady in our group that's been there for a while.
Thank you, Gina Teague.
Yep, we'll give props to Gina. Gina actually invited me to the group, and I've been going every Thursday.
And my buddy Dave Folsom connected me with Gina.
I think I know Dave. What's he related? Dave Folsom.
Dave Folsom, EXP Realty.
No, he's one of the guys in the room, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know Gina, but I don't know David as well.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Yeah, but he's in the group.
You don't know what his license plate says on his red Jaguar?
No.
RevShare. Yeah, it's great.
No, it revs.
It revs.
I think he has several thousand people or something in his group.
He's a really great leader.
So we have an easy number. For every person that we add is about it's about 1,000 a year.
Yeah, there you go.
Of just residual profit-based business money.
It's paid for the customized plates.
Yeah, and it can afford to pay for the
red Jaguar too.
Yep. All right, let's talk a little bit about real estate. We've talked about insurance. Yeah. I want to get a little bit into real estate. Most of my audience has been interested in real estate, either on the investing side or looking for buyers and sellers tips.
Yeah.
Right now, I know interest rates have been a colossal monster.
Yeah.
It's really affected the way a lot of people emotionally feel about buying. It may not help them objectively.
Yeah.
I know when the interest rates went up in the fall, people immediately thought, well, the interest rates are high and prices are high. There's no way I'm going to buy. The fallacy for them at the time is that they could actually negotiate on price of the home. And when you can negotiate on the price of the home, you don't have to give up as much upfront principal to win.
Yeah.
Which means you have less money that you have to refinance later. So that it actually works out better when you can negotiate. When you couldn't negotiate, even at 3%, you're going to refinance a number that you can never get out of that property because you already paid for it up front.
Yeah. Well, people in my generation remember buying houses and paying a lot, double digits. I mean, I've had an interest rate over double digits. So it's nice to have it at 3 or 4%, but it's not always going to be that way. And so I had a lot of my background in financial markets, working with retirement plans, but I didn't know as much about real estate. So I love that I'm in the insurance business now. It got me connected to real estate. And there's so much wealth to be built in real estate, and Texas in particular. When you look at the future of Texas, get to Texas fast and get busy because there's going to be a lot more people. As I drive around here, I can't believe all the things that have been created that I don't even know about. And, my wife, she's a CPA by training. And early on, she did some tax work at Tyson's Corner, Virginia, when we lived in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
She come home to dinner one night. I say, what did you see on the tax return? She says, all wealthy people own a lot of real estate. I'm like, okay, there you go. There's a nugget. They own apartment complexes. They own.
So how many houses do you own?
Just one big one.
You weren't taking any advice when she was sharing
No,
that.
I've looked at some things, and I think I'm going to help my kids getting out of college now. Probably help them buy their first home earlier rather than later. Let somebody pay them some interest rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I think if you took like even 5 of the top 10 wealthiest people, almost all of them were built in real estate in one shape or another. Yeah. I think that's incredibly valuable because you talked about building something, and we can call it a legacy, multi-generational.
Yeah. Legacy is good.
Because that's a big thing for me. I'm really firm on, proper masculinity, legacy, building something that is something that people can look up to and appreciate. Conviction, that's another thing we don't have in our society.
Yeah,
there's not much conviction about anything. Yeah. Everyone's just like, don't offend, don't say, don't. Yeah. And there's no conviction, right? Yeah. So, but let's talk a little bit about building something long-term. So like in the insurance business, you can build a book of business that is transferable. Yep. Probably at your paycheck job, probably not very transferable. It's probably only as good as you were there.
I mean, at the end,
maybe the 401k, but outside of that,
that was nice. At the end,
I was the pension.
Well, I was a director, so I had a deferred compensation plan, which was great. Good. But at the end, I did walk away from a lot of stock options, which I was going to do eventually because it's someday they're not all vested, and they're just giving you more. So it's kind of inverted. So I said, hey, I got plenty of good years left in me. Let's get started here and use my business acumen and skills and build something that I own. And I could build it as big as I want. I could go into commercial lines eventually. I could go into high net worth clients. I could go into other states. So there's a lot of opportunities.
So I took advantage of my real estate knowledge, and I did. I got into buying and holding. I actually got into flipping. I did about 100 flips.
You're a good person still.
And I got out of that. Yeah. I decided I will help facilitate and manage flips on behalf of others.
Yeah. It's a good way to get started for people.
The guy that just called me, he's my project manager, and he was out in Wichita Falls, and we're doing a couple of projects out there we're managing.
That's probably a good place to target.
Oh, it's incredibly valuable. The homes are unbelievably cheap.
I bet.
And the labor's fair.
Yeah.
It's not, outrageous.
And they probably know what they're doing too.
Well, they care.
Yeah.
Like they're invested in their own area, their own community, and they're not trying to make it their one and last job. They want to have some today, and if you continue to give them work, they'll be fair.
My mom lived in New Mexico, so I drove through Wichita Falls many times.
So we, for whatever reason, my wife and I, we like to drive far enough where we can drive in the same day and stay overnight and then come back, a few days later.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you're away over there in Wichita Falls.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a different passport area, but, there's a little town, Henrietta. It's right before Wichita Falls. Mm-hmm. It's got a Best Western there. And we'll stay there for 3 or 4 days because it has a pool. It's a clean hotel. And it's like a newer hotel. So and it's right next to a really cool gas station that sells all kinds of fun stuff in the area. So
we gotta wait for the kids.
And then we get to one of their top restaurants, which is probably 3 stars. So they've got 2 of them. We've been to both of them, the steakhouse and the seafood place. And then they have some chain stuff there too. But it's just they got nice parks, and it's just a drive. Right?
Something different.
It's a few hours. It's easy. We're in Flower Mound, so getting up there is not a big deal. So that's why I like Wichita Falls. But I'm doing it for an investor. Nice. He gets these opportunities, and people will call me. This is a good example. So he calls me and is like, hey, do you have guys that can, flip this house up here? And I was like, I mean, I can solve it. Sure. Yeah. So I went out there and I used my network. I found some people, and the guy that's doing it is amazing. If I could bring him here, I would. And he wants to come here, but there's plenty of work up there. Yeah, you got plenty of work where you're at. So I just get it flipped for him, and then he got it done. And then now we're going to go do another one. Now he's going to do a 5-plex. Yeah. And then he's going to do a couple other small houses, but they are so unbelievably cheap.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question. What do you like looking for an investor? Are you still looking for people to become investors for some of the stuff? Not as much.
I do. No, I have different ways of doing it in programs. Obviously, if they came in with cash, that's fine. Yeah. I do have the ability to leverage my own line of credit. I've got probably about $2 million or so that I have available that I can use to facilitate things on their behalf. So if they have about $40,000 to $50,000 cash, I can take them basically from start to finish on a full flip, and they are completely hands off.
Oh,
that's a real critical thing for me. I'm not looking for their input, advice. It's for someone that everybody wants to flip houses. Tell me you've never thought about flipping a house.
I've thought about it. I have a lot of friends who've done it. I know a friend of mine is doing up in Tennessee right now.
There's something interesting about taking junk, and then and you've obviously renovated probably some of your own houses.
But I'm not very handy, so that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't naturally think about, like, if I were handy or I had a best buddy or my brother who was pretty handy nearby, I think that's a more natural fit.
So for you say, well, I do like the idea of making money where everybody wins, right?
Yeah.
We help someone get out of a house that was in a bad situation.
Yeah.
They didn't have the money to upgrade it.
Yep.
We do. We're going to upgrade it. We're going to put money into it. We're going to make the community better. We're going to sell it for a better price that's more equivalent to what the competition
helps
is.
the values of the other people.
And the other homes now naturally go up in value.
Yep.
And you've made something that looks terrible look beautiful, right? That's why there's 1,000 home improvement shows out there. People have a fascination of just seeing, something that's junk and they make it look amazing. So
I've learned it's all about the buy. You got to get the right buy.
It does make a big difference, right? Well, that's the one thing you can control.
Yeah.
You can't really control what you're going to sell it for.
Yep.
You can't really control the rehab totally. There's some things you're just going to have to suck up and deal with. And they're going to have to do it for something. So you got to pay something for it. You can't really control that. Yep. But the buy price is probably the number one item that you do control. So I take it from start to finish, totally hands off. I pick everything, I get everything set up, and I even stage it, and then I sell the property for them. That's kind of the
full service
business model. Yeah, it's a full turnkey operation.
Good. You mind sharing what's in it for them?
What's that?
What's what do they look at in terms of their return?
Return, and they get to flip without knowing anything about flipping.
Yeah, neat.
Right? Like, it'd be perfect for you.
Okay, I'm interested.
So you're looking at it, and you say,
Wichita Falls.
I would like to make something better. I want to improve it. And I would provide the line of credit. I'll provide the contractors. I'll get it start to finish. And the only thing I want is you to be the owner. You are going to close on the loan, and then I will approve all the draws, and then you'll wire the money wherever we tell you to direct.
And the only real risk is how long it's on the market, I guess.
Well, the cost to hold it, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be your biggest, probably your biggest issue is going to be cost to hold. But I mean, Wichita Falls, we're talking homes are $50,000, $60,000.
Yeah.
And they're worth 90 to 100 when they're done, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a big market when it's 90,000. Right?
Yeah. So I in those cases, a lot of times we don't even need any type of line of credit. We just pay cash, knock it out, and then we're in and out of these things in like 3 or 4 weeks.
That's great.
They're super easy.
And I can offer you builder's risk insurance as you're building them.
Yeah. So we definitely need insurance. Yeah. So you did a policy for me over a weekend.
Yeah.
Dan works all night, every night, 24/7.
No, that's when I need to.
No, I mean,
I'm playing golf later today for the record, for 9 holes.
But you got your phone with you.
Yeah, I do.
So I tease Dan because I actually have the opposite. I don't work weekends or evenings.
I respect that.
Yeah, and I've generally, even in my business, real estate, right? I've managed to find a way to make myself available. Now, if I have emergencies, I'll take care of things.
Yeah.
But I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old and 8-year-old, and they, in the time with my wife is more important to me than any of the other things.
Well, that's your conviction. Can I bring up a conviction I have? Maybe a little controversy. Can this program handle that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. What you got?
So, I got 3 college kids, so I get to hear what college kids are interested in. And, I think they're really interested in fairness and equity and all that. And I think that's redeeming. I really think it's important, and we can do better.
At a high level.
Yeah, at a high level. I think the thing they're really missing in this generation is the importance of liberty. And, it seems like Americans are more interested.
Because they grew up in freedom, so they don't appreciate what freedom really
we're
costs.
more interested in what their pets have than the people in the world. And so through a buddy of mine that was a Marine in Korea, he got me interested in Korea. And I'm kind of a little bit of a nerd on following North Korea. And I just feel like there's a whole people that are being horribly treated in the world, and nobody's talking about it. Mm-hmm. Like, why aren't the liberty-loving Americans doing more to help those people in North Korea?
If they're so focused on liberty, then let's apply some of that.
Well, I think equity and fairness is great, but without liberty, you don't have equity or fairness.
Right.
There's no equity and fairness in the Communist Party in North Korea unless you're in the Communist Party. So you got to start with
And you still agree with everything they say.
Yeah, exactly. You got to start with liberty, and liberty is really the precursor for these other things that I think are. I think their generation is doing things better than my generation did, and they deserve some recognition. But I think they're kind of forgetting some of the groundings.
It's funny, if you said, bring me liberty or bring me, you would know how to end that. Right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't know what that means.
Exactly.
And there's nothing that really attaches yourself to something that you would give up everything to have.
Exactly.
And that's a tough thing but as we have a easier society, it makes a less good quality future generation when you don't have the pressure and the things to make you better.
Exactly. So I think I'd love to see a little bit more conviction on liberty in our country.
As applied to other areas of the world, not just here.
Here and it applies to the world. I think that would put it a little bit more context, because we're a little focused on ourselves.
Well, we have a me generation. We have a me group. Yeah, it's funny. You talked about pets. So I know, I don't think it's this generation or it may still touch them. You know that most are getting married much later. Mm-hmm. They're getting serious about having kids much later. Yeah. And they were more inclined to have a dog than to have a long-term relationship and live together with someone. Yeah. It's interesting because even when I was growing up, that is not the case. Most of my friends dated, we were serious, in our mid-20s. Yeah. And I know I got married at 24, and most of my friends were married in the mid-20s.
I was 26.
Yeah. I think even one of them, he was probably about 22, went to law school, and he's got 5 kids, and they're still married together, together today. So it's different how fast that changed.
They did.
I think they just saw divorce, they saw the pain, and they just didn't want to go through it. And they're like, well, I'll just not do any of those things. And then we'll wait until later when it feels right. The guy I do my podcast with, he's 29, and he does not have an inkling to get married or serious about even being in a relationship. He's just, I'm like, you're 29.
Yeah.
I could not relate to that. I thought at 21, 22, I'm like,
part of me kind of respects that they're independent enough that they think that way. It's a little different view.
Well, I tease him because we talk about relationship stuff all the time, and I give him a lot of pushback on the way he thinks about it. So it's fun to kind of talk through it. Yeah. And most of them don't even think about it. Yeah. It's not even really something they think about or dwell on or even consider. Yeah. All right. Who are your partners in real estate?
Like individuals?
It could be. So you connected with us. I think we talked a little bit about that. Yeah. You connected with us, Gina,
through EXP Realty.
So real estate agents is probably your primary, and that's how you get into people looking at buying a home, which triggers an insurance event.
That and the lenders. The lenders are really important. The realtors, I would say this: the realtors have the deep relationships with. Not as many realtors feel as comfortable sometimes referring in an insurance agent as much as a lender. A lender is more transaction oriented. They got to get this transaction done. They know the loan to the debt ratios and everything, and they know the timetables, the closing date, and so they're a strong partner. But also the realtors. So
they're more transactional, less relationship for sure. It's interesting. Like if they both said do this, I think the buyer would probably respond to the realtor faster.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to see it that way. And because I don't really think of it the way you said it, but that does make...
The realtor's been in the car with them, driving around. They got to know each other. They kind of broke some bread together.
Even the one because you ended up quoting one and you ended up having one done successfully for me. The lender also provided one. And you moved faster and probably, I'm sure, my influence. And it's funny because I'm not the realtor for them, but I'm invested in this business.
Okay.
I'm invested in the home with them in a way. Yeah. So I want to make sure that we get this taken care of, we get it refinanced, and they can clear off.
Well, like I said earlier, since I'm not doing service,
but they went my way versus the lender way is what I was saying.
Oh, they did. Okay,
That's the kind of point I was making.
Okay, yeah. But I when these leads come in from a realtor or a lender, it's all hands on deck.
Yeah, that's good. What value do you add to the home buyers buying right now?
One, since I've bought several different houses and been in several markets, I try to bring a little wisdom about what's going on. And I try to tell them what's, the long run advantage. One of the gentlemen I do work with in realtor, James Cunin, he's with Ollie Altman. And, he was talking about just 2 years ago, I want to say DFW had like a 57% growth rate. It was incredible in 1 year. It was just crazy. So, in the long run, it's amazing what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen with the Texas economy. The people are coming here from overseas, from California. I got a little time with an Exxon executive, and he told us a really interesting thing. And he said, when they looked at all the countries in the world and all areas of the world, as America and the world transitioned to more sustainable energy, Texas is best positioned of any place in the world. Oil, gas,
we have it all.
Ample land, and we have solar and we have wind. So Texas is not just great now. Texas is going to be great forever. This is the best long-term investment you can have in America and probably the world.
And then after that is succession. What are they? Succeeding? Is that what they're talking about, Texas? What do we need the rest of the world for?
That's another topic. Yeah.
Which is absolutely ludicrous.
I kind of like being with America.
Yeah, I think I like the benefits of being with the U.S. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some fun stuff in your background. You spent, I think it was 10 years at YMCA. Is that
12 years? I was on the board of Camp Belknap YMCA in New Hampshire. So I worked there for 11 years as a camper and counselor. My boys both went there, and my daughter went to their sister camp. And so when I was 12, my parents got divorced, which was tough. And I went to camp as my parents were moving from one place to the other. And the young men there kind of became that father figure I needed. And it gave me a lot of confidence, and they gave me a lot of responsibility young to lead others. And they poured in a lot of leadership development in me at a time where I was, middle to lower middle class at best. And so, this last 4 years, we put together a capital campaign to raise $10 million for the camp. And it was pretty neat to do that. And the board of directors is about 40% of that.
So the camp is in New Hampshire.
Yep, it's been around since 1903 on Lake Winnipesaukee.
Wow.
It's a boys' camp, and and we have sporting events against other camp. The camp motto is God first, the other fellow second, myself last. Pretty good motto.
I do. I like that. I like that it's, and I know going back to its roots, those were core things that were important to it at the time. Where do you see, and you may not have a whole lot of feedback on Scouts, but you've got YMCA and Scouts. Where do you see they are today? Is that a motto that you think they would stand behind today?
That's a really good question and a tough question, Sean. I think it's getting complicated. We would have discussions on the board. Some people would say, I came to the camp because my mom trusted the Y brand. Other people say the Y brand sounds like they have issues with the C in the YMCA. I think it's a tough issue for people. And in New England, it's a lot more secular than in Texas. A lot less believers of all kinds of faith in New England. So, but I do think there's a rooting there. And I think at the summer camp, I think everyone agree of all different faiths that attend, and we have different faiths that attend, it's a spirituality first, that there's something bigger than us, and we focus on kind of the Native American tradition of God, which is kind of healthy, I think.
It can. Yeah. I think everyone has a theology.
Yeah.
I think all human beings do.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. I think all human beings have some type. In the moment you say, even an atheist that says that I don't believe in God, he has a theology. He has a view of his role and his relationship with a God that he doesn't believe in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have some type of theology, even those that, worship a different God than maybe the God that we may worship. Right. They all have some form of theology. I think starting with spirituality is a great place, because the moment you take yourself out of being the center of the universe is a good place to start.
Yeah, especially for kids.
Because most everything is made things more easier, more comfortable, less stress. I watch my boy, he's 8, and he stresses over really small things. And I'm like, you gotta feel those things, right? You gotta experience those things. You don't learn from winning, you learn from losing. And they just get so defeated when they lose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's our society a little bit too. I think the spirituality thing made sense too, because we were out in nature, and so many kids today are playing video games all the time. So they go to summer camp for 2 weeks away from their parents.
Have a cleanse.
Yeah. And now they're out in nature, running around in the woods, and they're kind of a little bit more conscious, like, how did all this stuff get here? Oh. It's good.
So that's what trees smell like.
Exactly. That sap thing, it's hard to get out of your jeans.
It is. We just cut a jackfruit. You ever had a jackfruit?
I've heard of that.
It's like the size of a watermelon, full of spikes all over it.
It's
little bitty spikes.
Yeah.
And the sap is so rich and thick that she cut through with a knife, and I still cannot get the sap off the knife.
Oh, wow.
Like, I guess that's one of the downsides. Like, maybe people don't buy it because the sap is so
Just
tough.
jacked up your knife. Maybe that's what
jacked up my knife. So you went to college and you talked about you got another studying languages.
Yeah.
And did you start languages in high school?
I did.
Moved on?
I studied Latin and Spanish. So I did Spanish for 5 years and Latin for 2 years.
And that's enough that you went going to college that you're able to speak it even today.
Yeah, I speak it. And then
that's unusual, though. You know, a lot of people take all these classes and all these years.
Well, then I was an exchange student. That's important.
That makes a big difference.
So I lived in Puerto Rico for a year, and that's what really kind of sealed it. And then later in life, I lived in Costa Rica for a year.
So you said you also speak Portuguese.
I do.
That's a similar but different language.
Yeah, it sounds a lot different. Written, it looks similar. When I was a Spanish major, they made you take a year of Portuguese. And eventually, Paychex tapped me on the shoulder to help us try to launch in Brazil. So I went down to Brazil a few times and got to practice Portuguese. So eu falo português também. So, not as well, not as fluently, but it was kind of cool to be able to use something you learned a long time ago.
Well, how about that? I'm sure there's big pay bonuses for all those skills, I'm sure.
Just
maybe
in
some
the long
credibility.
Run. I got to go down to see a World Cup game too.
The Sea World Cup game.
To see the USA play Germany in the
amazing.
World Cup.
Oh, amazing!
In 2014.
At that time you went down. Oh,
that
would be amazing.
That was fun.
Definitely in sports. So hobbies. We'll talk a little bit about hobbies. You talked about playing golf.
Yeah.
And you were not playing in Augusta last weekend, but you do play golf. Your oldest said he plays golf.
He plays a little golf, yeah. So my kids have been 2 of the 3 are very athletic. So my daughter, she's a senior at CU Boulder, Rachel, and she's on the water polo team there. And they got conference championships at the end of April, and then maybe going to nationals in LA and after that. But no, I was a soccer guy growing up. I loved basketball, so my kids were basketball players. I had 2 playing high school basketball at Carroll Senior High and on the varsity at the same time, which is unusual to have that.
Yeah,
so that was pretty cool. My youngest one, more a gamer, video gamer.
So you have a daughter that went to CU Boulder,
yes,
which I'm sure is a very liberal school.
Very, very big time.
So how does it work when you're at a liberal school?
Yeah.
And you're on the female water polo team, and you're playing against another team that has a male on the team? Has she had that experience yet?
I don't think she's had that.
She probably will at some point.
She might. She's graduating May 11th. But yeah, I think that would be interesting because male guy water polo versus female water polo looks a lot different. I mean, those guys throw really hard.
With males and females all look a lot different.
Yeah, they do. So I don't think part of her would like it because she had 2 brothers and she doesn't get intimidated easily by people. So
probably not by that, but she can't overcome that.
But she wouldn't want to continually lose if that was the situation. So she's competitive too.
Because I was watching the lady from Kentucky that lost the national championship in swimming.
Yes.
So she went
University of Penn lady?
Well, yeah, and she went to San Francisco. No, this lady was from University of Kentucky.
Okay.
That's where she was from.
Okay.
So I know I'm going to lose some of the stuff. And it was Leah Thomas, I think, was the
controversial
male
one. Yeah.
that decided,
I think she was University of Pennsylvania.
Did not want to compete with the males, so ended up competing against the women and
broke all the records.
Cleared them.
Yeah.
And she killed her. But Riley is the girl's name. So Riley goes out to San Francisco College and right into the belly of the beast.
Yeah, a lot of competition there.
And they to speak, to say, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
About what equality looks like, and maybe some areas that we don't want to have the same equality.
Yeah.
And it was a very difficult time for her.
I bet.
She got attacked every which way, beat up a little bit, and then locked in a room for hours with lots of threats, and they were asking her for money just to be able to leave, and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But she went straight in there. It reminded me of that story, when you're talking about your daughter doing water polo. I don't think that it would be in the good interest of female sports to allow males into it. I don't think that's a good way to.
No.
But NCAA has not really backed down from this. They've been pretty open to allowing males to compete in women's sports. It's been a real challenge.
They know it's going to be interesting soon. I think this is a part of the groundswell that's out there in terms of controversy with the schools and how parents look at things differently than other groups.
Yeah, and I think starting with a basis of conviction is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
And I think even if you strip everything down to the lowest common denominator, which I like to do often in business or problems that I'm dealing with, if you don't have any type of real moral truth, then what's good for you today will not be good for you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And for those that are okay with men competing with women today, are going to have a big problem with the next generation, with what they'll introduce, because it'll continue to slide.
Yeah, but I do think that that person, Lydia, was that her name?
Riley is the one from Kentucky.
But
Leah Thomas.
Leah Thomas. Leah has the right to compete. Where she should compete and with whom, I think, is to be determined.
But why have rules and regulations if we're just going to kind of continue to bend them and allow anything and everything to take place?
Yeah. So I don't know how you do it logistically. She should compete, but
and they've had some of them, the trans, get into girls MMA. Imagine what that looks like. And it's pretty ugly. You thought it was bad watching a swimmer lose it?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't like to. I mean, my dad was always adamant, don't hit a girl.
Well, it's beyond
break that rule.
Think about the strength directly in competition.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're throwing a ball at someone.
Yeah.
You're throwing punches.
Yeah.
And she about the first contest, I mean, the transgender.
Has that actually happened?
Well, yes. The transgender woman nearly killed the female MMA, just beat the heck out of her.
I think that's...
So, I mean, there's so many places it doesn't make sense, but we still, as a culture, seem to think, well, we just want to let everything go. There's no conviction.
Yeah, I think most of the parents have some good common sense in this, and the society has to also.
Well, very good. Is there anything, other hobbies and things that you're into?
Mainly sports. Been pretty involved in my church over the years. I like working with kids, like I did at the summer camp. So I used to do a little bit with the 4th and 5th graders at the church. Just being involved in my community and traveling. I like to travel. I like to experience different cultures of the world. And so I want to build up the business, get a couple more people on board so I can be a little more part-time eventually.
Yeah.
And
so you can add agents to your group?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's part of the franchise that you bought.
Yep.
Okay. And you franchise, the home base is your office at home?
Yeah, just for the first year. And then I'll be having an office sometime soon.
Okay, and you'll set up something offsite so people can go to.
Yep.
Very good. Well, how do we find Dan?
You can find me on the web. If you search under Goosehead and Southlake, Texas, Dan Seyler, Seyler, you'll find me. And you'll see some pretty good reviews there I'm proud of, too.
I saw your first review.
Yeah.
Was that your son that posted
one of them. That was early on. He's a client, whether he liked it or not. He's a client. But
and you paid for the review, I know. But,
no, I didn't pay for the review. He was living at home, so maybe I did pay for the review at the time. He's living on his own, but I did do that. But people can reach me there. Emails dan.seyler@goosehead.com. But
and phone number.
A phone number, I'll give you my personal cell, 817-721-5116, and I will respond to you and get back to you. And appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today, Sean.
Awesome. Again, Sean Corbett, True West Realty Group, based in Flower Mound and Grapevine. You can find me on my YouTube channel, and it's SHAUNE, Corbett, CORBETT, and phone number 214-228-0383. Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for jumping in.
Thanks very much, Sean. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Take care.